And today I'm bringing you the third episode of my Nomad life series, and it's about what to do when you freaking hate the country you just moved to. I'm making this video today in the country I'm living in, but that doesn't mean that I'm talking about this country. I don't hate the place where I am right now, just so it's clear. Hello cookies, it's Iri, I'm back, and today I'm bringing you episode 4 of my Nomad life series, and it is how to be a good expat. Now I wanted to come up with a really long disclaimer about how yes, this is a self-explanatory video, but honestly, there are really bad expats out there. I've mingled with many of them in Singapore because I used to be quite sociable. And of course, in Sweden, I studied languages. In Singapore, I studied languages. In Madagascar, I've met a few expats. And in Malta, I've met some expats as well. So I know that there are not so good expats out there that make people go, ugh. Fortunately, not everybody. Most people are decent, educated people, because I guess being a bad expat comes mostly from not being educated, in my opinion. So it's not really like the people are mean, but it's more like they just don't know how to do things in a way that doesn't offend the locals. My number one tip is don't assume that no one understands your language. If you look at me, you wouldn't expect that I speak French. Of course, you hear my accent there. So French people do know that I speak French, but some people actually don't. And when I was in San Sebastian in Spain, there were some French people talking bad about me right next to me and actually understood everything, but I was way too hungry to say anything, so I just let it slip. Let's say that you come from a country where there are very few people that speak that particular language. Never assume that no one understands it, because even Malagasy, we're, I think, 22 million right now. I'm not 100% sure, but around that number, which is more than Finland or Sweden or Norway. So there are basically many Malagasy speaking people out there. So never assume that people don't understand, because when you talk crap about people and they know what you are saying, it's bad. Even if you're not talking crap but just talking about your sexual life or private things, it's never really nice if other people understand. My number 2 tip is never ever demean or talk bad about your host country in front of the locals, even if they are the ones who instigated it. I met this local where I live basically, and she started to complain about how people around here, according to her, gossip quite a lot, and when her family members go on holiday, everyone knows about it, even though they don't tell anyone, and it's just one of those few things she can't stand. And she was telling that to me, and I just said something like, oh, but it's really beautiful around here. Don't you think the houses are so cute and you have such perfect weather? See how I dodged that bullet? And that's basically how I deal with those kinds of things, because countries are such a sensitive topic to most people. I don't really care. I feel like you should have a dialogue as long as it is in a mature and respectful way and you're not trying to talk bad, obviously, about my country. I don't care if you talk about Madagascar, if you tell me, oh, Iri, your country is so beautiful, but maybe you guys should put more trash cans here and there so that people can throw their trash in trash cans instead of in the street, and I'd say, oh yes, thank you, that's a good suggestion. I wouldn't get mad about it. But usually most people would get pretty offended if anyone talks negatively, even if it's very innocent about their country. The tough thing about it is that it's always the locals who start it. I'm just here like, please, I don't want to say anything that could be offensive, so don't start this subject, because there is no way on earth I'm going to start complaining about my host country in front of you. It's just like brothers and sisters, or brothers and brothers, or sisters and sisters. They fight a lot between themselves, but if a third party comes and tries to look for trouble with one of them, they will usually team up against that threat, that outside threat, because yes, I can talk bad about my close ones, but you're not allowed because you're not part of the gang. So it's about the same thing when it comes to country. Unless, of course, it is a really close friend of yours that you've known since you were little and that you really trust and that you know is very open-minded and that is on the same wavelength. Otherwise, I just stay clear of the topic because you just don't want to draw unnecessary trouble. Of course, people might be open-minded enough to not mind if you just reply to what they're saying, or even if you go, oh yes, I agree, but I would just say, change the subject. The weather is always a good subject. Number 3 is don't flaunt your money. Let's just be real here for a second. Most expats usually earn more than the local population. If you're sent from, let's say, Europe to country as a manager, you will obviously earn more than the local population. There are some countries where people survive on 1/10 of your salary or 1/20 of your salary, and I mean, no one really mind actually. It's not like people are jealous. People don't mind if you have money. Most people will be happy for you and will just go, oh nice, that's good for you. I think it's very tacky and disrespectful to, for example, show off about how a restaurant bill was very cheap because you only paid $250 for a meal, while you know that maybe your neighbors who actually hear you talking about that earn less than that for the month. That is really disrespectful and that is just very demeaning, and that just makes you look like the typical rich expat who acts like he owns the world and that people don't like. I have actually met expats like that both in Sweden and in Singapore. I've never met expats like that in Malta. I've met expats like that in Madagascar. And for those people, I think they think that other people are just jealous or envious. But honestly, when you just talk about your new car or your new shoes or your super expensive watch and you make sure that everybody at the dinner party knows that your watch was expensive and that you can afford travels and that only poor people travel economy class instead of first class or business class, it tends to get pretty heavy on the mood of some people, especially locals again, if they earn less than you. They don't want to be reminded of the injustice of this world because, of course, in a fair, nice world, everybody would earn enough to survive, to go on holiday, to have a good life, to eat good food. I'm sweating so much. But the world is not like that, so don't remind people of what they don't have by being obnoxiously showy about what you have. And the last tip, which is to me the most important, is make an effort to adapt. Of course, things are never going to be as good or as bad as in your home country because it is not your home country. It is a different country. Now you have the chance to experience something new, a different way of living, a different culture. And I think it's just a waste of experience and of time and of energy to always complain about how, oh, in my country, kitchens are much bigger, or in my country, the weather is much nicer, or in my country, people drive on the other side, or in my country, at least people know how to queue. Well, you're not in your country anymore, you're somewhere else, and instead of just focusing on the bad and complaining about how it is there and there and there and being so rigid, try to be flexible, try to just observe how people do it, how people have managed for the last hundreds of years living in that country that is so different from yours. It is one of my pet peeves when I see expats that complain so much about everything, and I've met expats like that. I've met, of course, great expats who just enjoy everything, learn the language, have local friends, adapt, eat the same food, and well, that's more or less me, I'd say. Now you're just like, Iri, you're showing off, but honestly, I really try to adapt and to just live the way people live in my host country. But there's some people that are really annoying. They complain about the food, the weather, they complain about how the houses are built, how they used to have a house and now they only have an apartment, about this and that. And I'm just here like, but what are you doing here? I cannot stand people who say, well, go back to your home country or go back to your own country. I really can't stand that. When I see that sentence in forums or in comments or anywhere, that really pisses me off, because I feel like it is such an easy, non-smart answer. It just sounds like such an empty answer to anything, really. It's like, well, if you have an argument, come up with something smart instead of just saying, go back to your home country or your own country. But honestly, when I see expats that complain so much about everything, sometimes I'm thinking the same thing. Just freaking adapt. You're somewhere else now. This is new. This is different, of course. It's not going to be like at home. There are things that are going to be better. There are things that are going to be worse. But just try to enjoy and learn from the whole experience, because that's the point of living abroad. And that's the end of this video. I hope you cookies enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't want to miss the upcoming video. Honestly, some people would really benefit from my tips, just saying. So if you know anyone that you low-key want to pass a message to, but you're not quite sure, just share my video somewhere so they might see it. Yeah, you know, so it's a win-win for you and for me. And let me know in the comment section down below as well if you have some topics you would like me to address in terms of being a nomad. I'm not a digital nomad, like I said before. I am a nomad in terms of moving country to country, but I don't move every month or second month or 3 months. So for example, I know nothing about renting an Airbnb or things like that, so don't ask me about those because I have no idea. But the rest you can ask me, and until next time, I will see you cookies at the next video. Bye bye! Today I'm bringing you episode 5 of my Nomad Life series, and it is going to be about pets. I'm just going to give you a few points to consider if you plan to have a pet, or if you already have a pet but plan to start a nomad life.